Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at Admiral Markets. We're going to take a look at the charts here together in this live webinar. In fact, this is a trading room, so we'll be taking a view at price action, charts, of course, technical analysis to see what I think of the currency pairs and what I think could be interesting as strategy, trade setup, analysis, etc. Before we do that, though, as you know, Admiral Markets and I want to present this disclaimer, which states that this is intended for a global audience. Therefore, please take into account that the info in this session may not be suitable for everyone. To get the corresponding information on charting conditions and other details, please visit www.admiralmarketsglobal.com, select your country of residence, and contact an appropriate entity to find out if this webinar is indeed suitable for you to watch. In general, though, over the whole board, it is trading for exchange and global financial markets and products is considered high risk, and it may not be suitable for all investors and traders. Please seek the advice of an independent financial advisor for more information on that. And this webinar is for educational and informational purposes only. By continuing watching this webinar, you agree with the disclaimer mentioned here and on the admiralmarketsglobal.com website. And as always, I thank you for your attention on these two important topics. Today we'll be focusing on moving averages as the main tool, but it doesn't mean that we will not look and use pivot points, trend lines, fibs, but there will be a bit more emphasis on moving averages. I'll be using the 21 EMA band, which is high, low, and close, and 89 EMA close as an extra supportive trend line, moving average for the trend. Usually speaking, I use this checklist: trend, opportunity, filters, trigger, and the entry method to decipher each pair. So with that said, yesterday, or actually today, just a couple of hours ago, we had the Aussie interest rate decision. Let's take a look. Stayed at 2.5, if I remember correctly. There was also a rate statement 2 hours ago. There's actually no actual here at the moment, but I don't think it changed. We had Aussie trade balance coming in also earlier that day. Today we have PMI, USD, pound PMI 1 hour 40. So we have the traditional pound news event. And otherwise, I don't think, well, actually Thursday we do have something big. It's the euro and pound interest rate on Thursday. So that's all coming up this week. Last week, of course, we had a lot of news events. We had U.S. news. We had specifically ADP. We had FOMC. We had NFP. We had unemployment rate. NFP came in lower than expected, but it was still above the 200K, so that was a lot. And therefore, I do think, despite the fact that maybe the dollar is weakening a bit, that in general it's a pretty good number. We could see probably some dollar strength continue. But let's take a look at the charts and let the charts speak for themselves, first of all. So once again, moving averages, the ones you see here, two oscillators at the bottom, the stochastics here, and the AO awesome oscillator. And basically, you see also the moving averages I mentioned and the pivot points. That's it. So, quick look at the euro dollar and pound dollar, and then we'll take a look at pound odd and euro odd, which I believe are probably the most interesting. In general, we are getting into we are definitely in the middle of the biggest vacation zone you can imagine. Last week, July, the first 2 weeks of August. So we have to be careful and conscious of the fact that price might not go as far as we want or think or expect or etc. That is something that could definitely happen, and therefore we have to be a bit careful with that. All right, so take less risk maybe, or these are things, of course, that you have to decide for yourself, but that would make sense to be more cautious with the risk and be careful, more careful with the trading. All right. Alrighty, let's take a look at maybe quickly the pound odd first before we dive into the majors, because to me, if I look at the pound odd, if you look at the 50-minute chart, you see a correction to the upside where price hit the pivot point. Let me open my drawing tool for a second. Alrighty, so you see price bouncing off the pivot point at the moment, moving down from there. So those that remember the price action at candlestick strategy formations that we were looking at, this was a harami at the weekly pivot point. So anyone who traded the pound odd earlier this morning, about 4 hours ago in Asian session, might have skipped this actually because of the interest rate, but if you ignored the interest rate, then it was a harami pattern at the weekly pivot point. So it depends how you personally approach that. I avoided trading the odd because of that interest rate, but from a technical point of view, from a strategy point of view, if we just put the news events in the fridge for the moment, it was a harami at the weekly. That is basically what we're looking for, and we're bouncing off of that level to the downside. Obviously, we do have a lot of momentum here as well. So let's go back to the 50-minute chart. What I like about this is that we're clearly continuing with the momentum we had here. And if you put a trend line on as a supportive tool, besides the moving averages, you can see we broke out of that. Moving averages are bearish at the moment, right? The 21 band is crossing below the 89 band again. We have clear momentum in this fall as well during the news event. So a break below this level, for instance, a break below L3, a break below this 50-minute fractal, a break below 180.50 with a stop loss at about 75, maybe just above 75, would make sense, I think. Let's take a look at the target. Let me see the expected low of today, 179.87. So let's take a look where 179.87 is. That's roughly the DS3 and weekly S1 pivot point confluence there, and just above this bottom. So that makes sense. We also see as an extra analysis that the 4-hour is in a bearish mode as well, in my opinion. Price is below the moving averages. 21 is below the 89, and we had a momentum here as well. That's just an extra confluence. So if you look at the 4-hour candle, it's a big engulfing candle as well. It closed below the 21 band. So these are all supportive elements. So if we then break below that 4-hour candle's low, that could be a trigger. So this is how you could piece together a breakout trade using moving averages. From a weekly point of view, there's a low at 180.20, but that's still 35 pips from here. So, but obviously 180.20 could be a bouncing spot. So let's take a look where that 180.20 is. It's at the L5. So maybe taking some profit at that level and letting the remainder run down to 180, for instance, could be a way to split the targets into two distinctive levels, grabbing a bit of profit on the way down, but still keeping part of it on for a lower target. So maybe 3 TPs, 180.20, 180, 179.80, plus a trading stop loss above 5 or 15-minute fractals, for instance, could be a way to do it. The only disadvantage that I see in this is, of course, the fact that we have a pound news event coming up in 1 hour 40. So services PMI, right? Yeah. So one would maybe want to wait before that is over before trading it indeed to break to the downside here. A break below this would also be a break of the daily pivot, which is at roughly the same level as this L3. So I hope that makes sense. Otherwise, I don't really have anything much to add. I mean, if we can do a lot of long-term analysis on this, which could be very interesting. I don't know if it's really interesting anyone, but we're kind of in a bear flag or channel formation here after a fall. So if we break that flag, we could see some acceleration to the downside, but that will take maybe some time before that plays out. But we can put fibs on this downside, and you can see price could retrace maybe in kind of a zigzag manner to retest this bottom, for instance. But that's the weekly picture, and especially with August, it could take long before that really happens. Maybe September would change things. And if we take a look where that, what is this, 1 second? If we take a look where that bottom of the bear flag is, right here, you can see that's the space basically of that lower time frame breakout. It would bring price back to that trend line, which could still be a bouncing spot, maybe. Bounce or break spot. But that red circle there is the space until we get into that supportive level there. But the 4-hour looks good. 4-hour just has an extra explanation back at the top of the oscillator stochastics here. And the 15 and the 1-hour AO have strong readings to the downside. So those are all in their favor. So that's about it. Let's take a look at the euro dollar. Daily chart obviously in a very strong downtrend. If you look at the moving averages, you can see price was above them most of the time, at least above the 89 most of the time. Price crossed below it and has been staying below it basically ever since, and in that regard bearish. So daily is very nicely bearish. However, Friday we had a bullish day, so maybe we'll see a retracement back to the moving averages on this daily chart. The 4-hour chart, we add the pivot points, and you can see that there's a confluence of the monthly pivot point and weekly R2 at 134.85. Also, if we add a fib from top to bottom, we see the 38.2 fib pretty close to those pivot points. So in that regard, if price gets to 135.75, 134.80, I think that would be a good resistance zone to look for shorts. If price shows either weakness through candlestick patterns such as a wick, for instance, that those would be nice patterns to look for. Now, will price get there? We're not 100% sure, but I think it's a decent chance. Usually speaking, 38.2 fib after a sizable downside like this is the turning spot. For those that like Elliott wave and the wave counts, this could be a 1, 2, 3, 4. For instance, 4 usually stops at 38.2, and we can go down for one more. That's the reason. If we don't stop here, and price doesn't respect these levels, these confluences, and price then breaks above the 50, then obviously it's not a wave 4, and something else is going on here than I am talking about now. It's not a wave 4. So 50 is the max, usually speaking. At the moment, price stopped at 23.6, and it's what's happening on a lower time frame. Let's take a look. Hourly chart. Maybe let me see. This is pretty crowded. One second. Let me change one thing to this template for your own benefit. Not for me necessarily, but more for your own viewing. One second. Alrighty. Yeah, so almost there. One second. All right. So price is bouncing off the weekly and daily pivot point and is kind of above it. Moving averages are flat. We do have a spike up here. So to me, personally, this is more looking like a bull flag. Although it is a downtrend, we do see upside momentum with the slow downside. So there is a chance price can get up to this resistance level because of that pattern, and price could break like this to that resistance zone, which I would find as an interesting level for shorting. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens if we put a fib on this upside till now. Price hit the 50 fib, as we can see here, and bounce off that 50 level. There's a minus 618 target of that correction just at the weekly R2, as we can see. So we can take it off again. But so there is that potential for price to move up. So there is a counter trend potential here up to that level on the euro dollar to the upside. Although on the hourly, certainly on the 30 and 15-minute chart, it is already making that upside. On the hourly / 4 hour, it's more of a retracement reversal trade idea. So how can one tackle that? Let's take a look at the 50-minute chart. Price is really, on the 15 actually, price is just going sideways. There's no momentum. It's just oscillating between a pretty tight zone. So if one wanted to trade it up to the resistance, instead of waiting for price to get to the resistance, which is, I think, technically the safer trade, but then one could wait for price to at least get up to the R1, make a correction like this, and then preferably wait for the break above it again. How about if price moves to the downside instead? Then I would want price to go below at least the weekly pivot so that I know it's below the weekly and daily. Break, let it make a small pullback maybe, and then take the continuation. Okay, so that's the euro dollar. Basically, once we get up to 137, so there's some intraday trades maybe to the upside or downside, but with limited scope. Once we get to the 38.2, I think there's more space for a fall down to, for instance, 133, which could be then a bouncing spot because it's a weekly S3, it's a minus 272 target, it's a daily weekly bottom. We'll probably see a bounce from 133 again, and then we could move the fib from this top to the new bottom at 133. And we'll probably see price move back up again to the 38.2 fib at 134.52. So something like this could happen: up, down, up, and then again down. So the current up is limited, I think. The down after that is a bit bigger space. The up after that could be traded, maybe the second part of it, and then especially the down after that could of course see more follow through. Something like this is what I'm expecting. Let's see if that pans out. How about the pound? The pound is basically pretty similar as the euro dollar. All right, euro dollar. Here's the pound dollar. Let me change the template quickly. Difference is that the pound is the price is just dropping below the 89. The 21 is still above it, so it's not clearly as a downtrend as the euro dollar on this daily chart at least. There's the main difference. There's a big weekly support and daily support at 167. The price is still above it, so there's some small differences there. However, when looking at the 4-hour chart, we do see a lot of momentum to the downside, and here too, I would be inclined to say that this is probably going to be a wave 4 on the pound dollar, which could stop here at the 23.6 fib or at the 38.2 fib for one more downside down to that 160.70 level. That is the big weekly support. So that's what I'm expecting. Just like the euro dollar, pound dollar, I would also expect downside. There is the potential for price to get up to the 38.2 fib, but we don't know. It could be, this could be the bouncing spot already because of the fact that there's a weekly pivot as well at the 23.6 fib. So now down to the 15. Because of the pound news event, I wouldn't touch the pound dollar as yet because of the fact that it's in the middle of the playing field. It's not at the 38.2 point fib yet, but it did have a pretty strong bounce here, which suggests that this downside has most likely finished. So some downside is possible, but I would be cautious due to this upside momentum. And yesterday was a bullish candle. So I would rather wait for the 38.2 fib to get hit in the case of the pound. Aussie. Let's see. Aussie, it's a bit of a mixture. I'm not a big fan of it. It broke this bottom here, struggled at that resistance, the broken support becoming resistance here, but still pushing through it. So there's some Aussie strength also because of the news event. It really doesn't have any angle. It doesn't have really any trend at the moment. Moving averages are not so useful when there's no trend. They're specifically good when there's a trending environment. And the moving averages, if they're flat like this, indicate that there's no trend. So it's more of a range still between, for instance, these tops here and, for instance, these bottoms in here. And it's looking, if anything, like a wedge. And we're relatively probably closer to the bottom of the wedge now at the moment than the top. So let's check the 15 with that knowledge in our mind. Bullish moving averages on the 15. So it looks like a potential breakout to the upside. That would, of course, match the pound odd downside analysis. So in that regard, it does make sense. But because of the fact that the pound dollar is bearish, although we could make a retracement, I do think that pound odd is better. The only thing is that the news event could block a bit of that that pound odd. That's the advantage of the odd USD. But in both cases, odd strength, basically. That's what it boils down to. So that makes sense. So a breakout above the H3, where we have two fractals touching the H3. The stop loss is a bit on the wider side. And I really don't like the contracting wedge on the higher time frame. So those would be definitely things that I would be leery of. So as I said, I like the other one a bit more than this one. Richard, can you send that link again? I cannot copy it somehow. Oh wait, maybe no. Let me try it. Maybe I. No. Richard, could you send it again, please? I'm somehow not able to get it. I don't know why. The chat froze there. So um, just if you could send the same link, that would be great. Ah, great. Let's see. A short on the Aussie. Um, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. Let me check again. Yeah, those bottoms are still in place, so I agree with you on that one. They're not necessarily gone. That's also maybe one of the reasons why a breakout to the upside is a bit dangerous, but I would say the support level is roughly around 93.30, and we're trying to poke through it. So if I put a fib on this upside like this, 50 fib, price looks like it's going to the targets 93.50, 93.70. Yeah, I don't want to. The problem is if I say something about a trade and it works out, I don't want to discourage you from a trade that might perfectly work well. Uh, but I think both sides are not that great. First of all, on the Aussie in general, because of the fact that price is in a range like this, but because it's relatively breaking through this bottom, and we do see some hints of some bullish momentum, I'll be a bit cautious of the short indeed, personally. And if anything, I see potential for maybe a breakout. Although I'm not a big fan of that either. As I said, I see more benefit of the pound odd, which is breaking, unfortunately, earlier than the news event. But so yeah, I would be not so pleased with it. The odd short though yesterday when it had these wicks was different. But price kind of went sideways and then broke a bit up and it's still pushing up like this. It's in the meantime pushing through it. So because of that, it seems more like an ascending wedge that is trying to break to the upside, where we had resistance and it kick in, but it wasn't strong enough to push it to the downside. Kiwi looks similar in the sense that we're above the pivot points. We're above the moving averages, and we had a spike up here basically, Plus, we're making some kind of consolidation. Let me make that with blue. Ah. So here, two pretty similar for that potential, I would say. Other than that, let's take a look. Dollar CAD is not so interesting to me. Dollar yen, not so interesting to me. Let me move on. Take a look at the euro yen, pound yen. Pound yen, I would think, has a potential bearishness as well. These are not great trends, don't get me wrong, but at least there is some motion of price moving in a momentum here. Price is almost below the moving averages, and if it does, it could be a breakout. We would, with a breakout below the daily pivot here, also break below the moving averages, so there could be a fall there. Here too, it's L3, so a break below it could target the downside. The expected low of today on the pound yen is 173.05, 173.10. So if it breaks below L5, we could see maybe acceleration to the daily S3. So this one, just like the pound odd, looks interesting for downside break. Let's see, euro yen maybe too. This trend line doesn't look that great. Okay, let's make it like this. But the euro yen, actually, we know that euro dollar could make that upside retracement. So I would be a bit cautious with this particular euro yen. But it too, if it does break through the support line, it too could have a breakout. But the pound yen looks slightly better. Still, price has to push through it in any case. Let's see, New Zealand yen, something similar actually. There's a bit of consolidation here, so if it breaks to the downside, it too could have a breakout trade for lower, just like the other yens. Euro odd 2 could have a breakout trade below the weekly in L3 for that downside here. So I would personally think Euro odd pound odd look bit the best, I would say, with then the Euro pound yen behind it, and then New Zealand yen maybe. Alrighty. Let's see, CAD yen. CAD yen is also looking bearish. This is a bit different template, so bear with me. There are three sets of bands basically. All of them are aligned on this hourly. And price just broke below it. Yeah, it too is looking bearish. 4 hour maybe not so. More of a mismatch, but let's put our normal template here. Price below the pivot points and price below the L3 broke a bit below the L4. It looks bearish too to me. Price hooked back to the moving averages is now bouncing below it. So let's see. We need a bit, I would say, a bit more confluence or confirmation of that downside still. It's retracing at the moment. Ah, there it is. I need the 5 here. So price breaking below, for instance, the 93.90 or closing below the 21 band. Those could be moments that the price is back in that downtrend formation. It is at the band, but we don't know if price will really use it to move down. Let's see, looking at the hourly. A bullish candle last hour, so if you probably want to be a bit safer, then waiting for the break of 93.86 would be better. The other option is for price to let price hook back to, for instance, this 4-hour candle, retrace it to about 94 maybe, roughly speaking, and that could be a shorting zone. Retracement of that 4-hour bearish candle where I have the cursor there. Let's take a look where that level is on the hourly. Yeah, let it go back to 94. That could be, of course, another way of doing that for waiting for resistance at 94. So it looks pretty bearish on the yen. Let's take one more look at the dollar yen then. Moving averages are flat. Hourly is flat. Price is right in between the moving averages, 15.2. So let's do a different analysis. This looks like a spike of momentum, but we do see that price is right at resistance at 103. Here too, if price does break below this trend line, we could see maybe we have a monthly pivot point to be careful of. The dollar yen is not as clear, I would say. We have a big spike up, but we have a resistance here that did stop price. Now we're making some kind of contracting wedge here. Both sides don't look that very appealing, actually. A break below the monthly, we could see, I would say, some follow through to the downside. Upside probably would need a break above 103. At the moment, it's stuck in consolidation, so that does not look that appealing. So that's it regarding the usual pairs. Let's take a look maybe at a bit more exotics, if something catches the eye. New Zealand is flat at the moment, no no winner here. Does anyone have a preference for a more exotic pair maybe? Let's see, this is euro pound. Made a good spike up, is above the pivots. It looks like we are finding a retracement finally after last week's doji bullish candle. So just like the euro CAD, by the way, too, that could be something interesting to discuss still. Let me change the template. Okay, what I wanted to discuss here with the euro CAD is the fact that the AO is back to the zero line. We had bullish candles on the euro CAD on the weekly chart. So if you then zoom into the daily, what we could be seeing here is a bit of a retracement to the upside on the euro CAD. If we put a fib here, we could see some space up to maybe the 50 fib, for instance, or 38.2. 4 hour is already in that uptrend. Hourly too. So it looks like, just like the euro dollar, there is a potential breakout to the upside, I would say, but there's just a bit more space on this euro CAD than the euro dollar. So two options, as always, either the breakout or the pullback. And I think the pullback looks a bit better in this case than the breakout. But yeah, maybe not marginally, but that primarily because of the AO on the 4 hour that is sinking back to the zero line. So this particular one, I would rather see price go back to the 50 and bounce off that, for instance, than looking for breakouts here. Let me take a look at the hourly. Yeah, so, but a retracement back to the 50 could be a bouncing spot for that upside up to the 38.2 fib. Dollar CAD, from a contrarian point of view, from a reversal point of view, if one would keep an eye on this trend line, for instance, that could be the spot where price makes a retracement. Here we have some retracement gap there between the moving averages. There's also a gap between the weekly and the monthly pivot point right there. So from a contrarian point of view, this is maybe a wedge that could seek some retracement. That is a bit risky because we do have certainly a lot of momentum to the upside. So if we put a fib on this leg, let's see. Price could easily bounce off of that level, for instance, here, or even the 38.2 fib in honesty. So from that point of view, it almost looks more like, makes more sense to look for upside than for downside if you look at these bullish candles. Same like the euro CAD, in fact. Dollar Swissy. A bit of a wick there. That could also, we know that euro dollar could retrace a bit, so that could happen with dollar Swissy too. Pound Swissy. Pretty big bull flags were here that broke to the upside eventually, but now it looks like we actually broke out of support line. So there seems to be some momentum building maybe for a retracement. How far could that retracement go? It could go easily to, let's take a look on the weekly. There are a lot of layers of support that could act as a stopping spot here. But probably roughly this 151, 20, 30 zone here could be the target. Yeah, so there's some retracement I would say possible on this dollar Swiss also, pound Swiss, excuse me. There's a lot of momentum here too. So, but price would have to break below the daily pivot, I would say, and then we could see breakout to the downside. So the pound Swiss looks interesting too, but better probably to wait before the news event, as I already said. So my personal choice, it looks like pound Swiss, pound odd, euro, pound yen, pound Swiss, pound yen, pound odd. Then the euro odd probably, then pound dollar as well, euro dollar eventually, but these are a bit later in the game, in the week. And then maybe other yen pairs indeed, like the CAD yen or the New Zealand yen maybe. So let me take a look at those again. Pound odd is pushing lower, unfortunately, before the news event. It is breaking a bit. The pound Swiss wasn't as yet. Let's take a look at the pound yen one more time. Not yet either. It's still above the daily in L3. Euro odd also looks like it's about to push below it and break through the L3 and fractals here. It's the euro dollar that's actually pushing to the downside slightly. Yeah, so those would be the best ones I would say in my mind. Pound odd, pound yen, pound Swissy, euro odd. So that's it from my side regarding the moving averages for today. Unless you have some specific, maybe long-term charts you want to take a look at, is there anyone who has a preference? All of these trades are certainly vulnerable to the consolidation August can sometimes bring. If you look at, for instance, the daily Aussie, 4-hour Aussie, it's all pretty messy. Nothing spectacular there. Let's take a look at pound yen maybe on the 4-hour. It's pretty messy too. How about pound odd? The same. The pound dollar has a great 4-hour chart. You can see a lot of momentum here. Not many 4-hour charts that seem interesting at the moment. Yeah, so no big swing trades, but that's maybe not so surprising with the current month. So no extra advice on that part. This week we have only strategy and Camarilla trading on Thursday each morning. Nenet is on holiday, but next week we will have nothing actually. Sorry. The week after we will start again. The 19th of August we'll start with the normal schedule roughly again, I think. Yeah. Except the Monday, no. The Monday weekly FX recap is on Tuesday actually. So yeah, 19th, the usual week indeed. So only tomorrow and Thursday, and then we'll have a 10-day period with no webinars. But that's a good spot because, as I said, it's August, so it's good to take some of the days off if you want to, obviously. Anyone else going on holiday maybe soon? Or are you on holiday at the moment and you're just tuning in for the fun? Let's see. Kalian has a suggestion about odd Swiss. Let's take a look. My inspiration has dried up. But maybe the odd Swiss is something that's good to trade. Let's take a look. Let's see, odd Swissy. Long at 53,490. It looks bullish indeed. Looking at the moving averages, price is trying to recover above it again. Yeah, I like it because the Aussie is definitely showing that strength against the pound, as we know. The same stuff with the Swissy. So that makes sense. Now let's see where that 53 level is. It's back down at the L3. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, hook back here, down all the way to 53, maybe 54, up to 90, which is the H5. Makes sense to me. Will be a double bottom at the weekly and daily pivot point. So that looks like a good idea to me. Yep, nothing to add really. Um, I mean, there's a chance, of course, price cannot get there, but what can we do? If it doesn't, then we'll have to adjust the plan throughout the day. But for the moment, that seems like a good plan. MJ, yeah, I can imagine. Well, hopefully next year with a good trading year behind you, it can change. Bob is already enjoying it in Mallorca. That sounds very nice. And well, of course, yeah, it depends all how on your own personal situation. I hope you can manage to at least take some time off. If not, somewhere far, maybe somewhere closer by then at least. Let's see, Munerai, the EMAs here. They're EMAs, not SMAs, by the way. 21 EMA close, low and high, and a 89 EMA close. But people who, I mean, I'm not sure, Munerai, I think you've joined more often, but I also sometimes use the 34 EMA band, close, low, high, and a 136 EMA close. But I think today, let me double check. Yes, today it's the 21. I would put the stop loss, I will put it below 84.47. I don't think there's any reason to go lower than that. So 84.45, 43. That looks like a strong bar, so a break below that bottom would be a bit strange. If you really want to go a bit more further away and be a bit more on the safer side, then 83.37 probably would be better. The Ichimoku, yeah, we can take a look. Let me grab the Otsusi doesn't seem set up. Maybe the Euro does. Let me take a look. Interesting. It's actually too early. Didn't expect that, but apparently it retraced deep enough for the Tenkan to cross, and that's why it's not set up. The pound odd is actually in a downtrend, but it still has the parabolic above it. That's funny. So, but it is in a downtrend. So the pound odd is more of a downtrend than Euro odd when you compare the Ichimoku. Did you have, Vigantas, did you have any particular pair in mind when you were looking at the Ichimoku? The pound dollar, okay. And thank you so much, Kayla. That's very nice of you. I got an invitation. That's awesome, actually. The same holds true if anyone, by the way, were to visit Prague. Let me know. That's also for Kalian, of course. If you make it to Prague. Yeah, we should set up a travel club indeed. pound dollar. Yeah, it's indeed. Let's see. It had a breakout here and a breakout here and here, but that was a bad candle. And here and here. And after that, nothing. So I had already a couple of shorts in this downtrend indeed. And let's see now, if we go through the parabolic, there could be another one indeed. But the Tenkan does need to be bearishly aligned, and that one wasn't actually here. So this we can cross out, which leaves this one, and this one actually, and not this one. Blue dots were filtered out, the red dots worked, but even the blue dots were not bad, as you can see. The best red dot one that worked was this one, I think. Let me take a look. With a stop loss of about 70-ish, 80 pips, let's say. The trade is still open and was at its max at 220, but it's still open. If you use the parabolic Tenkan, indeed. So it depends how this breaks. If price pushes through the Tenkan and the Tenkan drops to a downside angle, plus the bar is closing with a strong close near the low, it would be a setup indeed. But if it has something of a wick at or a Tenkan not pointed down, then it could actually be part of the correction back to the 38.2 fib. This fib. And price could maybe retrace up here like this, for instance, boom, boom, up to the 61.8 fib. Let me make this a bit different color. And you see the minus 618 and the 38.2 fib are aligned there. So let's see how this reacts. Maybe it doesn't happen. It doesn't have to retrace up there, but I would say let's see how price responds to that. If there is some wick there, then that could happen. Okay, let me put quickly the last time the template we've been using so far, and then back to the 15. Yeah, we're seeing a break of that pound, which is probably letting the pound odd fall, I would think. Let me see. Not a lot yet, as yet. Pound dollar is moving, the pound odd not as much. Pound yen is trying to break for the first time. But it's all highly difficult with the news event because that could send this thing rocketing to the opposite side. That's the difficulty of it. But if something similar were to happen later after that, then yes, I do think they are good breaks. They seem decently set up, in my opinion. So, oh. Your odd is also pushing through L3 with a nice momentum at the moment. price is breaking below the pivots as well. As I said, at 143.10ish looks like a good TP zone if anyone took this particular short. But that's a pretty ambitious level as well. More conservative, obviously, is the L5. Well, folks, thank you so much for joining. I guess that will wrap it up for today. We'll be back still with a strategy. I'll discuss a different strategy than usual, by the way. So I hope to see you then. We'll be discussing, normally we discuss moving average strategy, specific moving average strategy, price action, this tanking, and the support and resistance, price action pivot points. Tomorrow we might look at that as well, but there's going to be a different strategy at the beginning that we'll focus on. So make sure to join in, and same time, same place. And in the meantime, wish you all a great day, great trading, and otherwise maybe an enjoyment of the sunny holiday summer weather. See you all soon. Cheers.